This video is sponsored by Skillshare. Ash Ketchum is often criticized as a static character less developed than a tree in Pokemon Sword and Shield. But that is not exactly a fair assessment, and Ash has actually transformed in all sorts of ways over the years, so let's talk about Ash's transformation from the very beginning to the present. Hey everyone, it's Charles. How are you today? By the way, Ragnar and Cloud have become good friends, and it is very cute. Anyways, we recently talked about 5 unusual techniques that the Pokemon anime's writers have used to develop Ash within the boundaries of the anime's floating timeline, but today we are going to discuss how his characteristics and abilities have shifted from series to series over the course of the anime in its entirety. From the highs to the lows, from the funnies to the farts, from the zero to the hero. It is going to be a fun time, so kindly give that like button a little spank for the YouTube algorithm, and let's jump right in. Our time with Immortal Warlock Ash Ketchum began one summer day in Pallet Town, aka Departure Day. And although we get some minor glimpses into his earlier past in the XY series, and a look at his budding rivalry with Gary in the lead up to their Johto League Smackdown, this episode 001 Ash is essentially the base Ash from which his transformation within the series began. Yes, it all started that day he was supposed to head to Sugar Daddy Oak's laboratory bright and early to begin his adventure with one of the 3 Kanto starters, the Fire Lizard, the Blue Turtle, or the bulbous Nightmare Monster. But being the mouth-breathing, idiot 10-year-old that he is, he overslept and got strapped with a nasty little mouse instead. Even so, he had confidence in his ability to turn water into wine and become a Pokemon master, but his adventure simply didn't get off to as good of a start as he may have hoped. In fact, it must have been a bit of a shock. And yet, thanks to the determination, grit, and selfless heroism that would define Ash Ketchum over the decades to come, he was able to win Pikachu's loyalty by never gonna give you upping on him and even putting his life on the line to save Pantless Mickey from a flock of attacking Spearows. As we know, Pikachu reciprocated Ash's heroism, and the two developed an unshakable friendship that has been at the core of the anime ever since. This is all to say that essentially the base Ash of the Kanto days was goal-driven, determined, and a selfless hero who loved Pokemon more than his own father, who is still out there somewhere getting milk. From entering a burning building to rescue Raccoon Gloom's stinky butt, to running at dangerous energy balls to prevent a genocidal cat kangaroo from annihilating life on Earth, to pushing through to the Indigo League no matter how many setbacks came his way. The good qualities of Ash's character that he has built a household name on over the past decades were on full display in the Kanto days. But it wasn't all roses and sunshine, as there was plenty to dislike about Kanto Ash. Namely, he was immature, overconfident, and pretty terrible at all things Pokemon, outside of the loosey-goosey, I care about friendship stuff. From dissing the hard work of the hot Celadon perfume shop ladies with all the self-awareness of a dog taking a dump on the carpet, to lashing out at his friends for his own pathetic shortcomings, to talking big only to embarrass himself moments later. At times, as a trainer with a stacked level 100 Special 6 and a maxed out Pokedex, it was pretty tough to watch Ash back in the day. He also relied heavily on Brock and Misty for guidance, and let's be honest, he probably would have died in a ditch somewhere if it weren't for their steadfast loyalty and support. However, although Ash's immaturity and overconfidence persistently dragged him down throughout the Kanto saga, we did see him develop his basic knowledge about how to train Pokemon, how to catch Pokemon, evolution, type matchups, and other key topics, evolving him from a 0 into a 0.1. Yes, his battle strategies were as shallow as a haymaker deck. Yes, he made a lot of mistakes. And yes, 4 of his 8 Kanto gym badges were little more than pity badges. But he was a newbie and he was growing quickly. Just not quickly enough, as measured by his relationship with Charizard, the biggest benchmark against which to see how undeveloped Ash was at this point in his journey as both a trainer and as an unaging man-boy. Long story short, on account of his inexperience and lack of respectability, he failed to get Orange Lizard number 2 under control before the Indigo League, resulting in an embarrassing crash and burn in the top 16 match against Richie. A match that he should have won, but he didn't. It was a disaster, it was pathetic, and it was a sign that Ash would need to figure out how to transform into a stronger version of himself to have any shot at redemption. Kanto was the era of firsts. First catch, first battle, first league run, first kiss from a grown man dressed as a hula dancer. Wait, what? And first Pokemon Conference crash and burn. And while Ash had taken his first steps into the world of Pokemon, he still had so much to learn. The gap between the releases of the first gen and second gen Pokemon games blessed us with a 36-episode intermediary story set in an anime-exclusive region, the Orange Islands. And while the league there was pretty unconventional, it brought us a banger of a mini-season with good story beats, Professor Ivy and Prima, the conclusion of 2 intertwined redemption arcs, and some of the best Ash Ketchum development in the show. To quickly frame the Orange Islands Ash in the context of his Kanto shortcomings, yes, Ash still sucked at Pokemon and generally at life when he arrived in the archipelago, but the makings of a champ were there, and the pants sheer of a loss to Richie had humbled him enough to recognize that he really did need to bust his buns to improve. His tendency to swell up with arrogance only to have his balloon popped by some of the hottest balloon poppers to ever pop balloons lived on, but during the Orange Island saga he gradually became more mature and less temperamental, and managed to build even stronger connections with his Pokemon as he progressed through the Orange League's unique gym system. Of course, there was still one major obstacle to overcome: Charizard. And thus, as viewers, we were in for a treat when Ash at long last won Charizard's respect and loyalty in episode 105, Charizard Chills. Ash had always been arrogant, but by comparison, Charizard was essentially Vegeta with a bad spray tan and wings, and nearly paid the price with his life in the Orange Islands, when Todd's Poliwrath beat his invisible pants off and encased him in a block of ice, leaving him on the beach for the Reapers. But of course, in spite of the distance that had sprawled out between them, Ash came to Charizard's rescue and worked all night long to save his friend, resuscitating him with his own hands in the most literal of ways. And that is Ash Ketchum in a nutshell. A Pokemon trainer as determined to better himself as he is to bring out the best in everyone around him. And by sticking with Charizard through the downs, and the downs, he finally earned Charizard's unwavering friendship. Bouncing back from the icy clutches of defeat, Charizard would recover and go on to redeem himself, and Ash and Charizard would together go on to benefit for years and years to come from the fortification of their friendship and newfound ability to work as a team. A team with issues, but a team nevertheless. Beyond his breakthrough with Charizard, Ash made all-round improvements as a trainer during his journey around the archipelago. He acquired all 4 Orange League badges with legitimate by-the-book victories, his signature unconventional battle strategies took a leap forward, and he topped it all off by winning the Orange League in his very first 6-on-6 battle, thanks largely to Pikachu headcrab murdering Drake's Dragonite. By the end of it all, Ash had matured significantly, redeemed himself for his humiliation in the Indigo League, and secured a key friendship for life. The Orange Archipelago Tour was a massive success, and Ash finally had a track record upon which to prop up his confidence. And yet, as soon as he returned to Pallet Town, the #1 Chad, Gary Oak, returned from his own adventure to rub Ash's achievements into the dirt, flooring the Orange League champ and his Dragonite slaying Pikachu in a one-on-one battle, and showing Ash that he still had a long way to go. Next up was Johto. Personality-wise, Ash didn't change a whole lot throughout Johto. Apart from being a bit more cool-headed and doing a better job working through his problems, it was more so a matter of polishing the abilities he developed in the Orange League and growing stronger as a trainer. That is to say that his battle strategies were a cut above the Kanto days, that he cracked every gym leader in Johto like an egg, and that, most importantly, as his Johto adventures drew to a close, he finally took down the seemingly uncatchable Gary Oak in their unforgettable Silver Conference Top 16 match, largely in thanks to the bond he had developed with Charizard back in the Orange Islands. And of course, thanks to Herman Heracross. It was an incredible demonstration of his growth over the past 267 episodes. He came out of the Silver Conference a round deeper than he had managed back in the Indigo Conference, and it was exciting to see where he would go next. And while he didn't do a ground-up team build for the Silver Conference, most of his team members in the regular season were fresh recruits and comprised half of his Silver Six. Not to mention that he didn't even rely on Pikachu in his match against Gary, showing that he could make things happen with different combinations of Pokemon and bring out the talent in the New Blood. Although Ash ultimately lost to Big Man Harrison in the following round, he had trounced his rival and transformed from zero to relatively competent hero. With the smashing success behind him, Ash parted ways with Gary yet again, Misty left the party, and the conclusion of the Johto saga marked the end of the original series. And yet, Ash's journey was only just beginning. Advanced Generation continued where the original series left off, and Ash's positioning as a trainer reflected that. He didn't freak out at other monkeys as easily as he once did. He had the decency to finally change his sweaty, disgusting gloves, and he didn't lean on his travel companions like he once did. And on that note, the biggest driver behind Ash's development in Advanced Generation may have been the relationship with his new traveling companion. No, not the annoying kid, the girl. Ash helped May find her direction in life by bringing her along on his journey, and contrary to the days when Misty and everyone else would dunk on him for being such a shameless idiot at Pokemon training, Ash joined Big Boy Brock as a party member who could coach those who were just starting out. This time, it wasn't Ash but May in the rookie seat, and while she ultimately opted to become a coordinator rather than a battler, Ash still passed on knowledge and experience that gave her an edge in her field, and this move from learner to teacher was one of the themes that defined Ash in Advanced Generation. However, this shift in character dynamics would also bring out the worst in Ash, thanks to the reemergence of his most appalling vice, the tendency to act like a cocky little gremlin as soon as he had anything to his name worth bragging about. As recently as Pokemon Journeys, we have seen how Ash lets success get to his head, and while he has matured over the years, he was especially insufferable throughout Advanced Generation. After a top 16 Indigo League finish, an Orange League victory, and a top 8 Johto League finish, he knew that he had what it took to make a dent in the world of competitive Pokemon battles, and more than ever, his vanity popped out like a Pop-A-Pack in an XS Girls t-shirt. He bragged about his skills, he refused to accept sensible advice from his friends, and he frequently made an idiot of himself as a result. To his credit, he spent more time than ever training with his Pokemon, developing their movesets, strategizing, and sparring, and his advances as a trainer led to quite a few exciting battles packed with creative tactics, like Thunder Armor. But even so, he never did manage to pull off a victory in the Evergrande Conference, and went on to get slapped from Sunday to Saturday by Captain Drake. That said, these heavy losses turned out to be a good thing for Ashy Boy, as they finally snapped him out of his Dunning-Kruger delusions about his own abilities, and as a result, he humbled himself and came back for a focused, methodical, and well-fought Battle Frontier run, in which he ultimately conquered Pyramid King Brandon to take home another slick trophy for the shelf. Advanced Generation was about Ash emerging as a leader as he struggled to get a grip on his ego, and on that note, it was perfect how, even after such big steps forward and another big victory, he made a triumphant homecoming to Pallet Town, only to get obliterated by Gary yet again. It showed him that he was not the only one growing, it kept him humble, and it kept him hungry. After quite a few ups and downs throughout Kanto, the Orange Islands, Johto, and Hoenn, Ash had really mellowed out by the time he touched down in Sinnoh. He wasn't quite as excitable as he had been in the past, and we didn't smell pompous stink oozing out of him like a bad case of the runs every time he took an easy victory. And yes, he and Dawn had great chemistry as co-protagonists, and helped each other out a lot in their respective careers, with Ash bringing slick moves like Aqua Ice Jet to the pitch, all thanks to inspiration from Dawn's contests. And not only was their friendship endearing, but through it, Ash also demonstrated that he had become more receptive to ideas from his peers than he had been in the past. But when it comes down to Ash's development in Sinnoh, only one word truly needs to be uttered: Paul. Paul entered the Sinnoh saga as Ash's rough equal in terms of experience, but dragged him through the mud at every turn, and what made matters worse is that his approach to training was reprehensible from Ash's perspective. Paul was ruthless and cut loose any team member who couldn't keep up with his game plan, in stark contrast to Ash, who was a compassionate friend to his Pokemon, and who would take the time to coax the best out of weaker players, knowing that they could gradually evolve into heavy hitters. And yet, as Ash got steamrolled by Paul over and over and over again, he could only begin to question his own methodologies. Was Paul right? Were Ash's methods inferior? And was he truly, as Paul put it, pathetic? Well, as we know, after being tormented for the better part of 3 years in real-world time, Ash finally emerged victorious by taking Paul out in their truly grand Lily of the Valley Conference showdown, confirming that his own worldview and training formula were really worth their weight in Golurks. Aside from becoming more open to feedback and elevating his tactical game to an entirely new level, that's what Diamond and Pearl was all about. Ash reaffirming who he was and building his shattered confidence back up to become a truly formidable trainer. Oh boy, Best Wishes, known as Black and White overseas. We've discussed the Pokemon anime's soft resets in another video, but Best Wishes left anyone coming in from Diamond and Pearl with such a shock that many claimed it was the beginning of a brand new timeline with a brand new Ash. But for better or worse, this simply wasn't the case, and the series is packed with references to his previous experiences, with everyone from Claire to Charizard to the Brockorock showing up to inject a blast to the past flavor into the Unova adventures, asserting that it was indeed a direct continuation of the original Ash's story. That said, Ash was truly awful early on in Best Wishes, which was nothing short of jarring considering that he had just reached his peak at the time in Diamond and Pearl, and after becoming invested in the Ash we knew for over a decade, it was truly bizarre to see Best Wishes Ash seem to have forgotten everything he had learned, especially considering all of the great continuity with past series. Even Dawn showed up for a multi-episode cameo, and to sing some praise for Best Wishes, all these references to previous adventures were truly one of the series' strong points. Regardless, story or character development wise, it would take enough mental acrobatics to qualify for the Olympics, the Mental Olympics, to explain away incidents like Dragonite dropping legendary slaying Pikachu's opening loss to newcomer Trip and his Snivy, or Ash bringing just one Pokemon to a gym battle in hand with a strategy limper than Mr. Rhymes' Kane. But even so, if I had to try and argue that it was anything other than a much harder than usual soft reset to artificially give Ash more room for development, and if I dared to attempt making sense of nonsense, then I would say that perhaps Ash was just on a cold streak. Any real-life sportsman or sports anime character will occasionally go on hot streaks hotter than a Magmar's armpits, and cold streaks colder than an Articuno's earlobes from time to time, and all we could do in this situation was assume just that, covering our ears, screaming, and praying that Ash would come off of his cold streak. On the bright side, it was somewhat nostalgic to see him about as stupid as he was in the Kanto days, and all I can say is that at the very least, he more or less returned to form by the end of the series and was ready to rumble by the time we got to the next series, which probably should have been the series that followed Diamond and Pearl. Aside from some moments of what we could refer to as marginal development, I wouldn't say that Ash transformed much over the course of XY itself, but that's okay, because he started and ended the series like a badass, as you'd expect considering how much he had upped his game in so many ways back in Diamond and Pearl. During XY, Ash was more driven to win than ever before after coming close so many times without getting a taste of the gravy, and as such, there was a much more mature, serious tone to his character. While he would still act immature and goof around, he had completed the transformation he began in Advanced Generation to become a role model his friends and fans could truly look up to, and the way he inspired others and lifted them towards their dreams was extremely rewarding as a longtime fan. That said, he did tend to put a little bit too much stock in the Ash Greninja Bond transformation at times, and when it failed, this led to some pretty crushing losses later in the series, and at one point he was driven into a sulk akin to what we had seen following his loss to his doppelganger back in the Kanto days. However, thanks to the encouragement of a close friend and a few snowballs to the face, he snapped out of it, mastered the Bond transformation, and took his dream all the way to the Kalos League Finals, where he almost won it all. Except that he didn't, because A. Alon was clearly the superior trainer, B. he didn't eat a big enough breakfast, C. egregious plot patrolling, or D. he had yet to spank that like button for for the YouTube algorithm, and subscribe to Chanu Chanu for all the hottest Pokechats. Let me know your answer in the comments below. But either way, Ash truly shone in just about all of his battles across the series, reading matchups and switching Pokemon in and out accordingly, employing creative strategies to take seemingly unachievable wins, and this time, more than ever, pushing himself to his limits, quite literally and physically. What we saw from Ash in Diamond and Pearl was phenomenal, but in XY, he arguably exceeded that benchmark, with his laser focus on scoring the W's, and likewise, he absolutely exceeded that benchmark in terms of his maturity and impact on other characters. Ash's progression to what he was in XY made perfect sense to fans who started watching the show in the Best Wishes era, and it was a godsend to fans who had been watching since Diamond and Pearl or before and felt betrayed by the not that soft reset that Best Wishes put him through. But for those who missed Ash's sillier side, well, look no further than the series that was just around the corner. Like the Wind Waker was to The Legend of Zelda, Sun and Moon became the Pokemon anime fanbase's punching bag for an art style and tone that were a shock to the system for anyone coming in from XY, and much like the Wind Waker, the current of distaste for such a drastic change obscured the great qualities of one of the greatest entries in franchise history. But to speak specifically about Ash, the mature Ash of XY had morphed into an abstract and cartoony character who looked like someone out of Yokai Watch. And instead of the competition-driven hardman who had nearly conquered Kalos, in Alola we met an Ash who was laid back, silly, and who for the most part simply wanted to learn more about the world of Pokemon with his friends, more than he wanted to travel far and wide in pursuit of another championship. Up until this point, Ash had built his name on Travel the Road's adventures, so it was a bit of a stone-cold stunner to see him chilling out on the beach, playing baseball, and simply spending his days attending class and hopping to and fro around the island. As we know, many fans took a look at this transition and were so pissed off that they totally gave up on the show before it had hardly begun. And what a shame that was, because beneath the comedic tone and veneer of childishness, this was the same Ash we had always known, and his time in Alola was full of meaningful experiences and huge achievements, many of which could only have ever happened in that Sleepy Islands context. Essentially, after years of travel, Ash finally had a chance to stop in one spot and take a deeper look at himself and the people around him. And as he bonded with his new friends, he was touched by everything from the bitterness of death to the blossoming of a lifetime of love. Not to mention that he helped Lily overcome her trauma, caught a mythical Pokemon, peeped some butts, and worked with a tight-knit team of friends to save the region from a big muscle bug and other ultra beasts. Personally, one of my favorite aspects of the series was seeing him bond closely with Burnett and his real father figure, Professor Kukui, the type of bonding that we had yet to see from Ash in franchise history. And all around, Sun and Moon simply heaped spades of wholesome slice-of-life experiences on Ash that fleshed him out into something more than the determined adventurer we had come to love in the preceding 20 years or so. Of course, he actually was in top form on the pitch as well, bringing up a fresh team to conquer the Manalo Conference and secure his very first Pokemon League victory. And he topped it all off by winning the incredible 4-episode 6 vs 6 exhibition match against the Masked Royal that was quite unlike anything we had ever seen before. Sun and Moon did not serve up your conventional Pokemon anime or your conventional Ash, but it hit different and it hit good for those who gave it a chance. And seeing Ash explore other aspects of life and finally win a league title was a real treat. And thus, after Ash's display of sheer drive to win in XY and his desire to flesh out his repertoire of Pokélife experiences in Sun and Moon, it was hard to imagine where he would end up next. And then, in August 2019, the next anime was finally announced, an adventure unlike any other, known simply as Pocket Monsters. And here we are, Pokemon Journeys, the round-the-world adventure co-starring battle-focused Ash and catch-focused Go. Speaking crudely, Pokemon Journeys Ash could perhaps be described as a fusion of XY and Sun and Moon Ash. He has the XY go-getter attitude and laser focus on training up his team whenever it comes to anything World Coronation Series related, but he also projects the laid-back vibes that he had adopted in Sun and Moon, and is happy to spend most of his time off the pitch performing research missions lessons, and learning about the world of Pokemon together with Go. On the whole, Journey's Ash represents a fairly natural progression of Ash's character, as a champion hot off of one of his biggest career milestones to date, who mostly just wants to see more of what the world has to offer off of the beaten battle track. Even though, of course, he is still working towards his own goals. And yeah, he certainly isn't hoofing it as much as he did back in the old days, but that's fine because he is making full use of Chad Dad Cerise's bottomless funding, as anyone in that situation ought to do, to hop planes, trains, and boats around the world to enjoy life, and he is perhaps more curious than he has ever been about the world of Pokemon due to his close relationship with Go and their roles as research fellows at the Cerise Institute. In Pokemon Journeys, we have also seen his core, unwavering character attributes on full display, with his determination and heroism defining many of the show's episodes. And of course, we even saw a streak of Ketchum overconfidence seep into his first match against B, resulting in complete butt destruction and a big case of the SADS. Yes, Ash has transformed, but when it comes to the characteristics at the core of his character and his biggest flaw, our 35-year-old man boy has things to love about him and things to work on, just like anyone else. And let us just mention that just as Ash was in Sun and Moon and XY before that, in Pokemon Journeys, his battle skills are in top form. He's been bringing up another team from scratch, and by the end of Pokemon Journeys, it is entirely possible that we may see the strongest team he has ever assembled as he gears up to head into battle against champions and top trainers from around the world. Pikachu, Dragonite, Gengar, Lucario, Sirfetch'd, Dracovish. Despite the on-screen world coronation battles in Pokemon Journeys being few and far between, we've seen Ash bring out the strengths of all these Pokemon in creative ways and pull off some absolutely sizzling victories against seasoned competitors, even taking down Unova League champion Iris's championship-winning teammates by finding ways to leverage the unique strengths of his comparatively inexperienced and very quirky monsters, as he always has. And that is where Ash Ketchum is at today. So although Ash has never developed to the degree of an anime character whose mother is eaten by a titan with poopy breath or anything like that, for a character who lives on the floating timeline, he certainly has changed from series to series, and I think that Journey's Ash is a pretty good representation of how Ash's cumulative experiences and achievements have come together to transform him into a calm, confident, and talented Pokemon trainer. Sure, he isn't a dynamic, unpredictable protagonist, but he is determined, he is a hero, and within the confines of the Pokemon anime, he certainly has evolved. From an immature, stubborn, cocky, and inexperienced little kid with nothing but determination to his name, into a Pokemon trainer and dependable man boy who has gotten his vices in check, for the most part, and racked up huge victories as a trainer who only becomes more and more talented with every new adventure he embarks on. Oh, hello there. Before we wrap things up in a hot minute with a question for you, I'd like to thank our friends over at Skillshare. They help make big, goofy, grindy videos like this possible, and if you would also like to make big, goofy, grindy videos like this, or perhaps get really good at writing stories or otherwise level up your creative skills, then by all means, keep on listening on. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creators that is dedicated to helping you improve your skills while deepening existing passions and getting lost in creativity. And better yet, the first 1,000 people to use the link in the description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare to get a taste of quality teaching in a way that will empower you to become a stronger version of yourself. Personally, I have taken so many great classes over at Skillshare, but for anyone getting into writing fantasy stories or building fantasy worlds for games, I recommend Science Fiction and Fantasy: Creating Unique and Powerful Worlds by Lincoln Michel. Lincoln's class has helped me build out a compelling fantasy world for my own story, and his insights on ripple effects and reinventing classic tropes have helped me tighten up the world in ways that I otherwise wouldn't have even thought of. So that is one of my recommendations, but by all means, check out their very comprehensive list of classes. Anyways, there's a ton of your potential waiting to be unlocked on Skillshare, and the value for money is really something special. So be sure to click the link in the description to claim your free trial of Skillshare Premium. Thanks again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video, and with that said, This has been a full breakdown of Ash Ketchum's transformation, and I know that I have certainly enjoyed transforming along with him over the past 2 decades and a half of the Pokemon anime. But how about you? What do you make of Ash's transformation? Do you think the writers have handled an immortal floating timeline character like Ash to the best of their abilities? Or do you think he is too static and a total snore? I'm curious what you think. I hope you all have a great day, and as always, let's chat.
What?